Today we're going to do a little warrior workshop. Often in the yoga class you'll hear the teacher talking about rooting down and rising up and finding space. And sometimes those concepts don't really make an awful lot of sense in the experience that we're having in our bodies, and we feel a little bit kind of more solid to the ground and stuck and no space. And I certainly feel that particularly in Warrior One. Still, some days I just find it really difficult to find a little bit of length and shape and space. So this is some ideas of how to help work into your warriors. And starting with Warrior One, we're going to come in as we mostly do in class through downward facing dog, because the way that you enter into your warrior will really help you get that shape, create a shape that will allow you to find the space and sensation in the body that you're actually trying to work into, because we're not trying to create a shape just for the shape's sake. We're trying to work into tissues in our body, and the shape helps us get us there. So starting with our downward facing dog. So hands rooted firmly into the earth. Inhale, lifting up the right leg here. So pressing the heel away, really finding length right the way from the fingertips all the way to the heel. And keeping as much of that length as we can as we draw our knee in towards our nose. Take your shoulders over your wrists and step your foot between your hands as close to that as you can get there. If it takes a couple of steps, that's not a problem. You're going to take your back foot down at a 45-degree angle. Broadly speaking, front heel in line with the inner arch of the back heel is what we're looking for in Warrior One, but if you need a bit more space, that's fine. Find your feet first, so you want to be really rooted down into the earth. Nice deep bend through this front knee, feeling the four corners of the feet, so that's the ball of the big toe just behind the baby toe and the two corners of the heel on both feet, really pressing down, and then a sense of lift through the inner arches of both feet as well. And it's as if you're going to bounce, as if you're about to jump up. So feel your legs really, really strong so that you can take your hands off the mat without falling over. And then inhale, sweep up, lift up. So for my first warrior, I always take my hands down. I focus on my legs. Maybe need a little bit of adjustment. Like I said, if you need a bit more space, one side or the other, a bit more length, wiggle into it. Take your time. You don't have to hit the mark in the perfect spot every time. You're not going to. You're giving yourself space to find where your body wants to go. When you feel like your legs are broadly in the right place, the bit that feels stuck is often your hips. So in Warrior One, we're trying to take our back hip forward and the front hip back, but it feels a bit stuck. So the first thing to do is to drop your tailbone. That'll give you a lot more space. So I'm drawing my right hip back, my left hip forward, but it still feels a bit sticky. It's early in the morning, I haven't done a practice. This is often how we come into our very first warrior. So coming onto the balls of your feet and bending your knees will give you somewhere to go. So it's a bit of a balance. You're working your muscles strongly because they're now hugging tightly onto the bones to keep you lifted. But it really helps that rise sensation and gives you space to swivel your hips. So now it's much easier to bring my left hip forward and my right hip back. Bend deeply into that front knee. You can take a bend through the back knee too, that's absolutely fine. And you can either stay here, or after a while, if it feels right to begin to drop your heels, you can go ahead and do that. So dropping my back heel, you can see it's going to draw that hip back a little bit more, but that's okay. It still feels like I've got a lot more space than I did when I first came in. So as I inhale, lift up, I now feel like I am bouncing off the mat. I don't feel like I'm kind of stuck into it. Your fingertips rise, spine nice and long, tailbone dropping, crown of the head lifting, gaze up. Warrior One. So coming into your Warrior Two is often from your Warrior One. So inhale, lift, exhale, Warrior Two. So with Warrior Two, you probably need to take your foot a little bit further out because you want to be able to get a really nice deep bend in that front knee. So often what we'll do is we'll be somewhere about here. It's just a bit more comfortable. Try and make sure you have a deep bend in that front knee. What you're really trying to do in Warrior Two is open up the inside line of both legs. So in order to do that, you're going to tuck this back butt cheek, so my left butt cheek underneath. opening out through the front of the left hip and into the hip flexor, extending that stretch all the way down the outside edge of the left leg. Bending deeply into the front knee. I'm drawing my knee out towards my baby toe, so not letting it collapse in. And as I do, I get a nice stretch through the inside line of my front leg, my right leg. So that's, legs are really, really strong. Muscles are hugging on. If it feels a bit stuck, or you just want a bit more of a challenge, once again, you can come onto the balls of your feet. It's really, I love practicing on the balls of my feet. But if you do, make sure you keep that bend through the knee, particularly through the front knee. With the legs strong, the upper body can be quite light. So there should be no tension through the neck and the shoulders. Sometimes there is, particularly for me, if I practice at the end of the day, you've got the tension of the day there. So allow yourself permission to not use your arms, or give yourself a bit of a wiggle before you start bringing your arms into it. If your legs are strong and you've got that lift through the inner arches, like it's lifting, rising all the way up through the inside line of your legs, as you lift your arms up, it should feel like a nice yawn. And as you exhale, think about your fingertips. So don't hug onto your shoulder joints, like cling on for dear life through your neck and shoulder. Try as much as possible as to yawn the stretch out to the fingertips, so that your arms are kind of like maybe like a washing line or something, just like draping. Your shoulders are over your hips, so they're not kind of forward or back. You're nicely balanced. That again gives your spine length, tailbones tucked. Neck's nice and long. Legs are the place that are really, really strong here. Warrior two.